feel guys need this sets of challenges, these kinds of ways to test themselves in kind of having these problems to solve that allows them to kind of figure out who they are.
Yeah.
It's not so much like that for a female transitioning to women. I don't know, it's just this. And when I was kind of thinking about the subject of like what it means to be a man and like what age do you kind of become that and like what traits constitute as manly and all of this sort of stuff, like I kept trying to think or go back to this point of when did I start to feel like I was becoming a man, and that was kind of when I was able to make my own decisions and have the confidence to be able to do that and knowing myself a bit more.
I don't think you just wake up and
No.
I'm a man now. It's a
kind of like this ever-growing
transition,
process. Yeah.
But definitely the harder things you do, the more you mature as a person. I don't really care what you're wearing, just show me who you are as a person, and that's the only thing that matters. If you're honest with yourself, that's the most important thing. I'm with you. I want to be with you because that's just people that I want to attract.
And like that's what cultivates a solid circle.
Hey people, welcome back to Triangle Theory, and today we're going to talk about what does it mean to be a man. I believe a lot of us have a few deep, meaningful relationships with other men, and that makes it harder to navigate through our life hardships. And we're going to touch on topics such as what does it mean to be a man, historical perspectives on masculinity, what is toxic masculinity, why vulnerability is strength, fatherhood and masculinity, male friendships and emotional intimacy, bonding rituals, and how to find friends.
The concept of masculinity and being a man can vary greatly depending on your cultural, societal, and individual perspectives. Traditionally, it's often been associated with traits like strength, honor, resilience, leadership, independence. However, my perspective is increasingly emphasizing the emotional intelligence, empathy, and inclusivity as important aspects of masculinity. Ultimately, being a man is deeply personal. I think other topics that we'll sort of cover as well is what age do you become a man? What traits constitute as manly? And are there initiations that you can do to become a man? Which is quite interesting. Yeah, man.
So, just to start, I remember on the 6th episode, I asked you, because we asked different questions each other, and I asked you, what does it mean to be a man? And you answered calm, quoting, calm, emotionally available, secure within himself, etc. I'd say most people and most men, young men, would view that as weakness, being emotional, available, emotionally open, and just being that emotional being, because we are taught that a man needs to be strong, stoic, doesn't really show his emotion, aggressive, and all of these things. So what does it mean to be a man for you once again?
So without going quote for quote of my last description on it, I actually have tattooed on my arm, know thyself, which is know thyself, which is Temet Noski, which is actually, I think that's how you say it. You'll see it in the Matrix 1. It's actually written above the Oracle's doorway. And it's a quote from Seneca because it means a lot to me, because fundamentally knowing thyself, knowing and understanding you and who you are as a person, you have to be able to be emotionally available for yourself.
Yeah.
And by doing that, you have to be very much okay with loving and appreciating who you are and all of the bad that you are and all of the good that you are. We're not perfect. We're a perfect work in progress. And for me, to be able to be the full masculine of what it means to be a man is holding yourself from a place of full love and transparency. And by doing that, it's knowing yourself fundamentally who you are. And then you can start expressing that in ways that is, confident, want to be able to be that person that can take a risk, have the courage, all of those other things that I mentioned, as well as being sort of playful, not taking things too seriously. Like, it all kind of stems from this foundation of, I know who I am, and that's all that matters. And I have my back no matter what, and I know what my boundaries are, and I know how to say yes, I know how to say no. I'm not a people pleaser. I'm this is who I am and I'm okay with that, good and bad.
Mm-hmm.
That to me is just, yeah, what it takes to be able to go to like step into that fundamentals of like a man. And that transition from boy to a man is being able to hold yourself accountable for all the mistakes that you're going to make, and look at it from a place of only growth. You are going to make mistakes, and that's cool. Every day is a mistake in some capacity, but how am I going to bounce from that? Am I going to let that consume me, or am I going to take that as a win, good or bad, to be able to keep growing, keep nurturing myself, keep adding that to the library of all the other shit that I've done, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting because I think about it very similarly. So a quick story. Once I went to Clapham Common Park, and I was sitting down on a bench. It was summer. It was really nice, and I saw this guy coming at me. He was really, really drunk, and he said something. Oh, I remember he said, "Get out of the park," and I was just sitting there. I was sober, so I wasn't really afraid of him, because I thought I could handle myself in that situation, because he was really, really drunk. And he's like, get out of this park. I was like, no, I'm not. And then he said it again and again. I was like, just calm down. Like, I'm not gonna go anywhere. If you wanna go, just leave. But I'm not going anywhere. And he said, and I think the fact that I wasn't really fazed by his appearance and his shouting conflicted his brain, and he said, mate, would you mind if I would sit down next to you? In like a calm manner. I was like, yeah, sure, man, sit down. So he sat down, we started to talk, and
Hey guys, thank you so much for making it this far into the podcast. If you have any feedback, then please let us know, as we always want to make this podcast better. So hearing from you is always a pleasure. Please subscribe to all of our platforms, get involved at Triangle Theory. If you've got any comments, or if you want to share any topics that you think that me and Conrad would like to talk about, then please get involved. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much.
we started to talk, and he started to tell me all these different things, and it seems like he was in a very low spot, because he had like 10 pints and he was very drunk. And what he asked me, he said, what does it mean to be a man for you? And I was sitting there, and I said, being true to myself and being true to my values. Because if I'm not being true to myself and not being true to my values, I'm trying to impress someone else, and that's not what a man does in my eyes. Is the reason I'm telling that story as well, because it was at that moment he kind of respected me in a way, and I said, come to Jiu-Jitsu, because I kind of felt that he needs help. I think he was depressed. And I said, come Jiu-Jitsu. That's how it helped for me, and I think it would help for you as well. And he said, yeah, I'll come Monday. I'll come on Monday. Obviously, he didn't come, and fast forward like 4 weeks, I see the same guy in Clapham. And now I forgot his name, but I think his name was...
You don't have to share his name.
Yeah, and I think it's Sean. But it's probably not Sean. And I saw him, and... If he would be Sean, I was like, Sean, and he's like, I remember you. and then he clocked that I was that guy on the bench, and he's like, oh, you. I was like, why you didn't come to Jiu-Jitsu? But I was very welcoming in the way he came, and he's like, oh, I just didn't want to. And then I was like, give me your number. He's like, I'm not using phone, man. I'm not using phone, because he really literally doesn't use his phone. He's like, I'm dark. And then I was like, oh, all the best for you, man. And he's like, you're a legend, man. You're a legend. I feel it was really interesting, because I wasn't really scared of him, but at the same time, I was very welcoming on that bench, because he was drunk, and I didn't really know what can I expect from him. But I kind of felt that he's a good person. He just needs some guidance. So yeah, he asked me what does it mean to be a man, and in my eyes, it's the person who's true to himself, and a man true to himself and true to his own values, knowing his values as well.
It's interesting. You're saying jiu-jitsu because I've only recently kind of undergone my jiu-jitsu journey.
Oh, I'm so happy you're joining us, man.
I'm super stoked
so
today, and I've taken to it immediately. I love it.
You, by the way, I'm not trying to kiss your ass, but you're really good at how you're doing.
Right, thank you so much.
Like, you came a couple of times, but it seems like you.
Yeah, man, third time. That was
It's crazy, man. You definitely get it.
Yeah, and my goal with going in it now is just as long as if I can defend and get a full mount or not get tapped in a spar, then I'm happy.
That's it, man.
That's
it.
That's for me what it is. But I put that story on, and it was you, me, and Charlie. And my mum commented on it. She was like, "Oh, my men." And I was talking to Charlie about it, and I was like, "I really, really enjoy jiu-jitsu. I fundamentally feel really good in there." And I was like, I couldn't help to walk away feeling like more of a man.
Yeah,
doing a martial art.
Absolutely,
you know?
Absolutely.
And I go through phases where I really geek out on stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and like really research into things, and I've been looking at
LCD for you.
sort of like the art of war, martial arts, combat sport, looking at different generations of different armies. And if I can look at sort of something that fundamentally, I remember watching the film 300 when it came out and being like, boom, there is a bunch of fucking men going out there and fighting for what it was. And I know that you spoke to Charlie recently about
Bro,
me and Charlie,
my God,
we've been talking about the subject for a while.
I watched. Sorry for cutting you.
Yeah,
I'm just so excited to tell that I watched a part of the episode on Joe Rogan from with Zack Snyder. He's
I've also seen that.
You know that they used to be lovers before the wars. I was like, oh my God, this is just the next level of
mind-blowing podcast. By the way, like, that guy's a legend. He's the screenwriter for 300, and he was saying that sort of these Spartan warriors, in order for them to fundamentally like go out and beat these Persians, they weren't just brothers and brotherhood and comrades. They were also lovers, and they would actually show their appreciation through that by also making love to each other, whether or not that has constitution to. But when I watched that film, and I remember watching that, I can't remember when that film came out. Must have been like,
it's old.
It's quite old now. But I was just, you look at sort of Leonidas in the 300, and you're like, fuck, like, you want to be that kind of like strong, individual, powerful man. And you look at them going out fighting for something and dying for something that they believed in and sticking up for, against however many tens of thousands of Persians in this great Thermopylae, and all the politics around that. And you look at that time and that era where they were focused on the element of like working out and being this force of nature, and fundamentally what they stood for, and like you were saying, adhering to your values. And and I think that film stuck out to me a lot because it was men that were saying, no, fuck you, this is what we stand for, this is Sparta, this is everything.
We fuck each other. No, but fair enough. That's when I've heard that, man, it's crazy, and I didn't know it's true.
Yeah.
And another thing, what they used to do, they used to shave the bride's head on the wedding day because, and they used to fight with their brides because they can't really get hard because they too feminine.
Yeah, insane.
So they used to fight them, and they get a little bit of blood on their lips, and it's crazy, man. It's crazy.
It was so interesting, like, and when you think about sort of through the ages of that time, and just how, like, and even primarily and instinctually how we want to defend and fight in this kind of, I don't know, this very much.
It's very primal, man.
Yeah.
Very, very primal.
And
fighting in general is just.
Yeah. And going back to kind of jiu-jitsu and the combat and the martial art and everything, there's this, it allowed me to kind of better understand fundamentally this kind of primal instinct to kind of be able to, doing jiu-jitsu with another man or rolling with a woman, or there's just this instinctual part of it, this like movement aspect of combat where I can't help to feel like I'm tapping into this like masculine energy that's allowing me to become my full self.
Don't you think that's only achievable by doing hard things?
Absolutely.
Because look at the Spartans, right? They did hard things, not touching on the things they were doing on the side.
Definitely doing hard things.
But yeah, man, it's just I feel like when you listen for, Jocko Willink, and when he talks about going to the war with his brothers, and whenever he touches on the stories that he used to have, and a lot of his friends unfortunately are dead now in the war, just because of maybe PTSD or something, I don't know. But he always talks, and he has tears in his eyes because it means so much to him. And I feel you just get to that connection only by doing these hard things, and going into the war is a completely different level of hard. Whereas I think doing martial arts is very hard, but going to war is a completely different. And for example, if you there were times when in Thailand, myself and a couple other guys used to fight on the same card against other people. So we train for like 3-4 weeks together, going training every time, and then you going into that stadium. By the way, stadium, I'm not talking about football stadiums. There's Muay Thai stadiums where you can have like 400-500 people in a room. But anyway, and you go into that stadium, and you're going to go to a war, let's just say, but you feel such a connection to that person who you trained with for the past 4 weeks, and that's why you build such a strong relationships in martial arts, I believe, because you just simply do these hard things.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think that adversity is necessary for the growth to become a man? Do you think adversity is something that you need in life?
I guess yes, I would say yeah, because only by testing yourself in uncomfortable situations you're going to know who you are as a person. And being a man is within us.
It's challenging.
And if you're not challenging yourself, if you're not testing, you're just not going to really understand the values you have and what you want from life. So yeah, absolutely, you have to be challenged in any way, some way at least, to realize what sort of what makes you that person.
So I'm also really interested in your journey because I know that you had in Lithuania conscription to the army.
Yeah.
And what age was that?
So after school, straight away you are called. Some people are lucky enough, so they're not called, but I just went there as a volunteer, you could call it, because I knew I'm going to leave. On my mind, I kind of was thinking of leaving Lithuania at that time, so I thought I'd rather do it now than going to the UK and then after three or 4 years they shout me and I have to go back. So straight after the school, I was 19 at that time, and I did military service. It was 9 months.
And in that military service, you're testing yourself and challenging
Oh
yourself.
yeah. It was the first time I realized, probably not the first time, but one of the, when you stack in enough evidence of who you are as a person, and military was one of those retreats, I would say, that kind of tells you who you are as a person. So when I was a kid, I kind of knew that I'm competitive, but not to the point. When I went to military, I was like, oh, so I am actually that person. I feel like I'm that person. So I was very competitive. I remember there was this, so we used to have like, it's not a platoon, but there's little groups of each individual was. So we have like seven people in one group, and then each person has their own gun. So I had so we had the guy who was the oldest in the group, and he was basically like our boss basically, and then other person has carrying the machine gun because he was like the tallest and the biggest, and other guy was he was responsible for carrying bazooka, which weighs like 30k, man.
Where you have one guy in your platoon that have fucking bazooka.
Yeah,
That's insane.
bazooka, and I was the guy who's supposed to carry his rockets. I was like, fuck that, I'm not doing this.
You're the rocket man.
Yeah, well, basically, I'm just the guy who helps him to carry stuff. Like, I'm just this on the side, innit? In my mind, like, the guy who carries the rockets is very important.
Yeah, of course.
In the platoon. But in my mind, I was like, I want to be the main man. Like, I don't want to be this guy who carries the rockets. And so the guy, but that guy who's supposed to carry a bazooka, he used to get ill a lot, and a lot of our practices was without him, so we didn't really have that person. I was like, well, this is it. Like, this is my shot. So I went to the commanders, and I was like, look, this guy always get ill. I want to carry that bazooka. I don't want to carry all of that stuff. And I went like 3-4 times there, and they're like, well, fair enough. Like, give him the bazooka. Like, let him carry it. Like, and I always used to carry it. And like, I used to have a gun, and then I used to have a bazooka, and then I used to carry like 10-15k bag as well. So I used to have like 40k on my bag all the time. And I'm like, the person who carries bazooka must be like big, innit? And I was just like this little guy who was carrying it. But so yeah, at that time I realized like I always want to be that guy to like take on more responsibility, take on more stuff. And yeah, military was great, man. I really, really liked it. I almost stayed there.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I remember I was cleaning my gun, and I had all the papers ready to give it to my instructors. I signed them. All I needed to do is just give it to them, and in that way, I would have stayed there for 5 more years as a professional. But something in my head it said, no, you just go to the UK.
Really?
I went to the UK.
Wow.
It's crazy. I almost stayed there, yeah.
It's so interesting because someone that hasn't done military service, but I wanted to do military service, I wanted to join the Navy.
Yeah.
But I think what's really interesting is like you're talking about like cleaning the gun and kind of stacking up more information about who you are and how you what kind of person you are in different situations. And I think when I look at sort of the army and military practice and what you learn and the skill set you learn, I think that's greatly beneficial. I don't think the practice of war or going to war has any benefit to our planet whatsoever, but I think there's this training element or this adversity, this like problematic situations that you have to solve in a situation where your life is involved in it. Helps this kind of it's almost like this kind of initiation to like if I look at sort of Spartan kind of era and how they would go and fight in that film, they would fight this wolf and then they come back with the wolf and then they're a man. And if I look at sort of other cultures and tribes that have this kind of, it kind of sets you up to be a man. It's like you're no longer a boy, you're now a man. And
well, when you look historically, sorry for cutting you, but do you always used to have these rituals in tribes or in back in old times, like is the boy hits certain age and then there's a certain ritual, maybe you have to hunt or do something to become a man, like in Spartans as well, they used to have this so 13 years old boys, they used to let them go in like a fields and hunt the slaves. But if they hunt the slave, then yeah, it's fine. But if they get hit or they get killed, it's also fine because they're not going to join the stronger group in a way.
Yeah.
So it's crazy, like when you think about 13-year-old is like my nephew. My nephew's now 14. I can't imagine him like going and killing people, right? It's that the times are so completely different.
Yeah, it's crazy. But I think it's interesting because it's having this set of challenges and adversity that I feel you need as a young adolescent male.
Absolutely.
Just transitioning
Absolutely.
into a man.
Absolutely.
And I think that's from testing yourself and seeing how you work under pressure and seeing how you deal with situations and scenarios and what your thought processes are and what your emotional reactions are to things. Because I think that builds a level of maturity for men.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you look at girls and how they are categorically more mature younger than guys, and it takes guys longer. I feel guys need these sets of challenges, these kinds of ways to test themselves in kind of having these problems to solve that allows them to kind of figure out who they are.
Yeah.
Whether it's not so much like that for a female transitioning to women. I don't know. It's just this. And when I was kind of thinking about the subject of like what it means to be a man and like what age do you kind of become that and like what traits constitute as manly and all of this sort of stuff, like I kept trying to think or go back to this point of when did I start to feel like I was becoming a man, and that was kind of when I was able to make my own decisions and have the confidence to be able to do that and knowing myself a bit more.
I don't think you just wake up and you're like, oh,
no,
I'm a man now. It's
kind of like this ever-growing process. Yeah.
But definitely, the harder things you do, the more you mature as a person, and so it's not like you wake up and I'm a man now.
Yeah.
It's a bit different.
I think when I think about it as well is having the valid sort of having other men that you look up to and actually surrounding yourself with older men as well. And when I look at my two father figures, my stepdad and my dad being a bit more of this emotional kind of character that's a bit more introverted but quite kind of spiritual, quite almost kind of quite feminine in a way, and has this kind of emotional understanding of things, whether it's my stepdad's this kind of like big bearish kind of hug man kind of just this person that was really reliable and strong and was able to fix all these things and have all this understanding of how to be resourceful, kind of like a Swiss Army knife, just is able to do everything. And for me, trying to piece those two individuals together, I tried to take a bit from each. This sort of emotional development side from my dad that was, and then my stepdad, who's this kind of big, extroverted, generous, resourceful guy. And I tried to take a bit from both of that from roles, and then just other individuals that also helped me along the way. Another one of those men being when I worked on boats, and my boss, who was this big Nepalese guy, who sort of was part of that sort of Gurkha era. Well, had it. I think he did Gurkha training, which is like one of the most like hardest armies of all time.
There's special forces, no?
Yeah, and his approach to things was this kind of discipline and showing up.
Yeah.
And having, this sense of professionalism for yourself. And it was such a pleasure to watch him work, because whenever you saw him work, he took great care in it and great pride in everything that he did. It was always so laid out perfectly, and all of his tools were in one place, and he kept really good care of himself. And it had a big impact on me, because I saw him and he was a father and just turned, had just had a newborn when I met him. And it was really inspirational to see him, because it kind of taught me, I was like, that's someone I want to be when I'm older. That's the kind of...
Hey guys, your feedback is very important. And no, this is not an advertisement. Actually, what I'm asking from you is to leave a comment below what you liked, and most importantly, what you disliked about this episode, because we can improve on the next episodes and we can make a better content for you to listen. Give us also a topics you'd like to us talking about, and we can prepare, do your research and talk about it on the next episodes. Thank you.
It was like taking himself seriously in a way that was what you would expect a man to take himself like he just prided the work that he did, and he was really good at what he did, and he was really focused in at what he did, and he was really disciplined. You know, he was up at that time, went to bed at that time, and he did everything that he said he was going to do, and he did it in a way that you knew that's what you would expect. He always set his expectations straight away, and that was a big role model for me. And I was like, if I'm going to sort of transition from that sort of boy that's sort of all over the place and being someone that sort of grows and matures, it's going from that to that, going, well, yeah, I'm going to start taking pride in what I do. Even if it's at that time when I was working in that job, not something that I wanted to do, I was like, I'm going to work as if I do want to be here, because, you know, how I do anything is how I should do everything.
Exactly, yeah.
And he taught me that, you know.
Do you still keep in touch with him?
Yeah, now and again. Yeah, now and again. I think he's now here in the UK.
Oh, nice.
I don't think he works on boats anymore. But we always used to call him Granddad. That was his name on board, because he was kind of like this father figure to everyone, you know. And I think he enjoyed playing that role.
Yeah.
But he kind of took me under his wing a bit. He kind of inspired me to do that. And I feel for sort of thinking about masculinity and what it means to transition, it's finding those role models. I was very lucky to sort of have those guys in my life, but I've always tried to look for that as well. Of like strong male figures. I think it's really important to have strong male figures that can kind of ground you a bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
And kind of show you the way and kind of have that sort of pass the torch element. I think that's really important for the growth. Having those kind of like mentorship, you know, even recently having James, you know, and working with him, he's kind of transferred a lot of his knowledge, and I've seen that as really kind of role model, powerful stuff that I've been like, yeah, I really look up to that, I really value it, I really respect that, because I think men need that. They need that kind of structure, where you've kind of got that person above you that you want to kind of
strive for.
I think you need that growth element. You know, those are the shoes that you want to grow into.
No, I completely agree with you, man. And I feel that's why it annoys me that this we were talking about hookup culture before, and because of that you have so many men or boys growing up fatherless, because all people want to do is just have sex, and they don't really think about consequences. And well, my dad died when I was really at a very early age, and he left us, to be honest. But I feel like just because I had this experience, I never would wish that to my kids. So I always said, like, whatever would happen, if it happens that my the partner gets pregnant, I would never leave that partner, no matter if I would be 16 or 17. I'd always stick by their side, because I always had this feeling like I was left behind a bit, and I would never really want that to feel my kid. It's just so much harder growing up without that role model. So you start to have these different role models, like your friends and people that you think they're doing the good thing, but they're not actually doing the right thing. And then I think internet is a huge thing for me. It was a huge thing for me, because I could see all these different men achieving things, and I have more options to choose from, let's just say that, rather than growing up when I didn't really have an internet or anything, and I always had my environment wasn't that good. So we used to have like alcoholics at my the place that I lived, and not like in the room, but in the same environment, in the same area where I lived. And all these people, it's just like, in my head, I didn't know what's right, what's wrong. So yeah.
I think there's because this is something that I really look up to you about, and it's interesting you say that, because I feel like you have a really good judgment of character, and I feel like you really have this sense of, you try to understand who they are fundamentally, and maybe that's and I'm not like trying to say this is, but from and thank you for sharing that. It's like where you didn't have that role of that sort of figure in your life, and you were sort of saying like you were looking at other, you know, role models in your life and taking it from, you know, different spaces, whether it be online or in your actual life. It's, you know what it is. You have to know yourself in order to understand what kind of role model you see.
What would you seek for?
And I feel like that comes from a real place of strength and understanding who you are fundamentally, you, Conrad, and then going, well, what inspires me? You know, what do I want to take from those that are achieving more than I am, and what attributes do they have? And yeah, it makes sense, because from what I know of you, it's someone that really doesn't look at things at face value. It's like, well, who are you as a person?
Yeah.
What values do you have? Are they similar to mine? Because I've worked really hard on them. And I think that's a really nice trait to have.
Everyone, man, like everyone is fucked up in some way, and we shouldn't just come and judge of, like, if I'm against men wearing rings, I wouldn't say, oh, why are you wearing rings? And like, no, just show me. I don't really care what you're wearing. Just show me who you are as a person, and that's the only thing that matters. If you honest with yourself, that's the most important thing. I'm with you. Like, I want to be with you because that's just people that I want to attract.
And like, that's what cultivates a solid circle.
Exactly.
I've always been someone that's been like, I'd rather have less people around me, but I know that are super tight and super solid, and I trust and they trust me, instead of having a wide extension of people that I don't really know or have. I think that's also really important, is your level of influence. Like, who's influencing your circle? Are they strong? Like, do they have the same values as you are? Do they pay into you as you pay into them? It's this, you know.
I was speaking with Charlie yesterday in Jiu-Jitsu as well, and mate, like, it's you know, when it hit me, when I think it was Thursday, so Monday, when we went to Jiu-Jitsu, and Brian, yourself, Bart, Charlie and myself, we left Jiu-Jitsu, 5 of us were walking, and then Charlie went to Wandsworth Road, and we went to Clapham Common, and we said, oh, see you later. Then we hugged each other, and then he said, let me know when you get home safe. Like, all of this warmth and just a brotherhood. And when I saw you and Charlie saying goodbye to each other, I can actually feel the emotional intimacy between you two. Obviously, you're twins and you're brothers, and but there's one level how we saying goodbye to each other, and then you and Charlie is just a completely different level. And I just love that, man. And I feel men who don't have these relationships are just, it's so sad, because as I was preparing for this podcast, I thought about it a lot, and I feel like you can have all the money in the world, you can have all the houses, all the girls, and all the fame, everything you want, but if you don't have these meaningful relationships with your friends, it's just so sad, man. I mean, so sad.
Like, the moment I walked into that jiu-jitsu gym, and it was this part of, you know, you're rolling, you're exercising, you're doing. I walked in on the Monday not feeling so great, but I walked in there being like, I feel amazing.
Every time, man. Every time.
Totally different, not just from an exercise level. And it was also a part when you're drilling, and then you stop drilling for a bit, and then you start socializing.
Yeah.
And you start talking, and then you realize actually you start building this rapport. And it's just funny how the mindsets are quite similar. And it's funny you picked up on that, because I also picked up, I was like, this is so nice that we can all have that kind of
intimacy,
level of intimacy that comes from a place of like love. And we all really enjoy the same thing and love the same thing, but we also care for each other in a way where it's like, you know, get home. I always have the chat with Charlie of, you know, if I was to ever have kids, or if he was to ever have kids, you know, what would that upbringing look like, and how would I want to upbring, especially sons, you know, and how would I want them to grow into the footsteps of being a man? And
why did you say especially sons?
Well, not like if I had a son, I think there's almost this level of, I would want him to really get the grasp of things really quickly. And I would love to put him through these, you know, his own sets of challenges that would allow him to be better than I was, 100 times better than I was when I was his age.
And he will be, and he
be able
will
to
be.
get that head start.
Because he's not, I believe, like our kids, they're not going to have to figure out everything themselves. They kind of will have the blueprint of how to do things.
Yeah.
Because I feel we are very into self-development and self-awareness, and I feel we kind of can direct them into a better way of understanding things.
Yeah.
So they're definitely going to be better
Yeah.
at our age because they just have a plan.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they just have to follow it.
I mean, even if I think about kind of where I want to be sort of in the future, if I was to be able to have, you know, a stable enough life to be able to bring a child into this world, you know, having that group of males in my life, whether, you know, that kind of brotherhood where, you know, my kid would be, or, you know, children, boy or girl, would be able to be influenced by a strong group of male individuals in their lives, you know, whether it be you, Charlie, Bart.
Oh, that would be so
sick. You know what I mean? Where like, I don't know, I just imagine it to kind of would be, they would be able to have this really great relationship with really great, strong male figures in their life that have, you know, got a lot to say and a lot of advice, and that level of respect is, you know, transferred. And I talk to Charlie about that a lot, because I think as I grow older and I sort of seek that brotherhood and have sort of friends around me, where I'm kind of learning off them and vice versa and stuff, and how I would love to be able to transfer that into my own offspring one day. It would be awesome, you know?
Yeah.
It'd be so cool. But yeah, like going back to it, it's allowed me to want to drive myself more, to be able to understand what it even means to be a good man. Not just a man, but like an actual, you know, good person. And it's funny walking into that. And I was talking to Charlie about it yesterday, talking about enlightenment. Because he was like, "Oh, are you afraid you're going to get cauliflower ear or anything like that?" And I'm like, no, I think it...
Enlightenment.
I think, yeah, am I prepared to sacrifice the vessel of having a couple scars in order to tell the story of enlightenment? Like, if I can find some level of enlightenment through doing jiu-jitsu, something that's
oh mate, this is the path to enlightenment, you know, I'm telling you.
And then having the sacrifice of risking a cauliflower ear, then I think that's a pretty good trade-off.
Yeah,
you know, I don't take this vessel with me to the next thing, but that inner part, you know, wow, like if that's going to help me learn fundamentally more about discipline, brotherhood, you know, even the females in that gym that have that really strong, fierce courage, and being able to vibe and bounce off that, you know, and also not just that gym, but you know, I'm sure it's around like any kind of gym. I think.
It's funny you mentioned girls, because it just reminded me a story of Joe, you know Joe.
Yeah,
story.
yeah.
Oh, I'm not sure if I should say it so loud. Anyway, he had a friend. He has a friend. He was he never did martial arts. Maybe he did karate, I'm not sure, but he never did like any jiu-jitsu or anything. But he always used to. He had a big mouth, and he always used to say, "Oh, like I could submit you. I could do this. I could do this. I could do that." And Joe was like, "Well, you couldn't submit me. That's for sure." Because Joe is a blue belt, so he's legit. Against the guy as well, and he said, in fact, if I would bring you to my gym, all the girls in that gym would submit you as well. And that hurt his ego. He goes like, "Nah, shut up, like you couldn't, that can't happen." And he brought him into the gym, and one of the girls in that gym just strangled him, like arm bars, did the arm bar, I think the triangle as well. I was looking at him, and that really, really hurt his ego. Like you can tell, like he wasn't really happy. But it's just a funny story, like how people think that girls are weak and
Yeah.
very feminine, but not in jiu-jitsu gym. They just can become this.
Warriors,
Yeah,
like tough, you know.
it was really really funny. I
But it's
remember
it's
watching
also that like humbleness that you have, that immediately checks your ego
it.
straight away.
Yeah.
That I also think all men need is this test of strength.
Mm.
This, you know, having this kind of resistance to your ego that you're the best in that. You know, it's this challenge that allows you to overcome that quickly.
And that's what I think. That's because that's vulnerability. Like if you are vulnerable enough to admit that you are weaker than some person, this just takes a lot of humility, and that's why vulnerability is such a sign of strength in a way, because you're not trying to hide any emotions. You're not trying to pretend that like, oh, it's fine, I don't really care, but you're actually willing to face the problem, and not the problem but just your emotions in general, and say, yes, I got fucked up by this girl, and I'm gonna do something to get better at this specific thing. So I remember we spoke about it in one of our episodes, that vulnerability equals strength, and I feel like that's a good thing to include this in this episode.
Totally, yeah. And so talking to Charlie about it as well, where he was kind of saying that going to the humbleness and sort of the ego checking, which I think contributes to understanding what it means to be a man and being able to get out of your own way. And I think jiu-jitsu is a great example of that, because it's an immediate response where someone's kind of got you in a kind of armbar or whatever
Submission.
it is, and you don't want to tap, and you risk getting hyperextension.
Yeah.
And then you're walking around with that really sore elbow, and that's, you know, whether it's like weeks or months that takes to heal, it's a reminder that it's okay to like tap early.
Yeah, exactly.
And learn from the mistake.
Exactly.
And that's really interesting, because I think that transitions into life, you know, being okay with, you're not going to win every battle. You're not going to win everything.
Yeah.
You know? Sometimes it's okay to tap and learn from the mistake, go back through it again and again and again, get out of your own way. And I got that immediately from jiu-jitsu, especially like walking in there with a white belt, rolling with a bunch of blue. There's no way I'm going to win that. But it's just this level of, I'm going to put my ego aside and learn something.
Yeah.
And
well, that's it. That's how you improve in jiu-jitsu. You're just willing to be humbled. And again, I'm going to repeat myself, but I think you're really good, even though you did 3 classes. But it feels like it takes a lot of humility, and you got that. So that's a very good step, because you're willing to learn. You're not coming in the training to win. You come in to learn, and that's a huge difference, because you can't. And I was that person who came to the gym to win. I used to be extremely spazzy as a white belt, and then as I progressed, I realized that it's all about learning and controlling your emotions. And then I when I got like 3rd, 4th stripe white belt, and I clocked that I don't need to. And don't get me wrong, it happens sometimes. You spar, and especially when you spar lower belts, and they do something on you that you don't really like fuck.
Yeah.
I'm not strangle you now. But obviously you have to control yourself, right? Because it's just stupid to get angry.
Yeah. No, it was so. It's funny, because I think some people get in there and they either love it or they hate it. But I also think where I'm at in the time of my life right now, where I was like looking for something like that, and it felt like I found it.
No, I'm really happy you joined the gym, man. Yeah. I know you look far, but if you just come 2-3 times a week, and
no, dude, it's so
definitely I'm really glad that you started there. Really, really glad.
No, it's amazing. So going into sort of questions and stuff, do you think there's any specific age that you need to be, any age that you become a man?
I don't really think about it. I think it's very individual. As an I'll give you 2 examples. So say you're 8 years old, and then your dad dies, your mother dies, you got a little sister. Okay, let's just say that you're 14 years old, and then your dad dies, your mom dies, and then you got his little sister that needs to that's like 5 years old, and you live with your grandma, as an example. So naturally, that guy is going to mature a lot quicker than the person who's got a very comfortable environment, got both of his parents, everything is provided, doesn't really need to challenge himself. So I feel that the first scenario, the first boy, he's the man in the family already, because there's no one really there anymore. Although he's still a boy, but he's maturing a lot quicker. So it depends on the circumstances and just the scenario you're in, I guess. But you have 40-year-old men, and they still acting like boys, some of them. So if I guess it all comes down from if you're challenging yourself enough, if you're doing something hard, then yeah, then you mature quicker, and you becoming a man. Let's just say I don't. It's a very broad is a very broad spectrum of there's no he's a man, he's not a man, there's that's a boy. It's just
ever growing.
It's ever growing thing, I guess. Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I was looking into bonding rituals, but I think we touched on it a little bit, because it's all about doing hard things and just being like jiu-jitsu stuff. Jiu-jitsu, martial arts in general, I think is the best bonding ritual for men. And even in that book we read, both of us we read, called No One Mr. Nice Guy. He talks about martial arts and how men need that to need that brotherhood to actually develop those healthy relationships.
It's interesting. My grandfather on my dad's side, I'm not religious, but he was a part of a brotherhood where it was like they would look out for each other and help each other, and it was almost, I think it was like a religious thing as well. But he always used to say, fundamentally, it's really important that you've got other guys or men around you that check you, and you check them, and you help each other and fit into each other. And that always inspired me to want to find the things that I enjoy doing, and have that group around you. Have that group of individuals that.
Oh man, it's just I'm just gonna double down on it. It's so important. Like, I never really realize how important it is, but I can't sometimes put myself in that situation of, if I would do what I'm doing right now, and I wouldn't have my best friends, would never have these one of them days where you just sit down with your mate or a couple of mates, and you just laugh at shit, and like not having this, I just can't imagine that. It's very, very important to have strong relationships. And I'm not like, you can laugh with any mates, but having those deep conversations, like I feel what we're doing right now with this podcast is catching up twice every month and talking about these different topics, and we definitely connect on a deeper level. And it's just so important to me as a person, just to have these deep conversations, not to just talk about random stuff, which is good sometimes. I'm not saying like it always have to be deep, but having these deep conversations definitely helps you develop as a person.
Cool. Concluding it off,
I've got a question. If you would if you don't have friends, like we're talking about importance of having the brotherhood and why is it important and all of these things. If you wouldn't have a friends, how would you find them? Say you're 24 years old.
Find out what interests you, and then look at how to get involved into groups. Like, for example, I really enjoy running as well. I also want to try and do find a running club near me.
I know one in London Bridge.
Yeah, let me know. Whether it's, I think, through sport and exercise, if you can get involved with that, I think it's a really quick way.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you probably should be exercising and taking care of yourself.
Of course.
And if you can disconnect that with a community of people that also enjoy doing the things that you enjoy, I think that's really cool. Or it doesn't have to be exercise. It can be a book club. It can be a part of a band or a music or whatever it might be. You know, there's so many things out there now that you can be a part of, and find friends that way. You know,
it goes back to our first episode of how to find a purpose.
Yeah,
find that thing, join that class, join that tennis class, join that Zumba class. You'll get involved around the people that are going to introduce you to more people. And that's how you're finding friends, how finding the purpose. Friends is purpose in a way. So I literally wrote down the same thing. I asked you about a form. I'm going to see what you're going to say about it. So yeah.
Smashed it.
Secret question.
You go first.
Can you share a personal experience where your understanding of masculinity evolved or changed over time? What prompted the shift?
Can I remember a specific time in my life that prompted a shift for masculinity? I think where I started working for myself, that prompted me to start taking more responsibility for myself, but for others around me.
Sorry, but that's another thing. If you want to mature more, just take on more responsibility.
Yeah,
that's it.
Couldn't agree more. And I think starting that is a really good question. Back in when I first moved to London and started that jump into, okay, I'm going to start working for myself now. It was a challenge that prompted me to be able to go, fuck, I need to mature up and actually it's not, no more being this boy. It's time to actually grow up. And, who do I want to be and where do I want to be 10 years from now and why do I want to be that person? That's what prompted me. And also I think it was understanding what success I wanted, defining my success and what that looked like for me, and then going, right, I'm going to go for it, because what is there to lose? I've always done that. I've always been the kind of person that's been like, what's the challenge, where's the challenge, I'll go for it, fuck what happens. And that's always prompted me to grow up quicker.